粉丝们，让我感受一下你们的热情，好吗？经过了一个春天的奋斗和汗水，14支战队的恩怨情仇，穿梭4座城市，延绵2000公里的超长战线。今天2支队伍杀入到总决赛，踏足今天的场馆。我们相信再次迎来这场经典之战 ，RNG、EDG 第4次同时站在了 LPL 总决赛的舞台上。我们有理由相信，今天会是一场非常精彩的对决。同样，他们之中只有一位胜者能够昂首举杯，一决锋芒。2018英雄联盟职业联赛春季赛总决赛马上就要开始了。我们可以看到，双方战队的旗帜都已经飘扬在了我们场馆的上空。现场所有的召唤师们，拿出你们最嗨的热情，让我们一起迎接决战的来临。决战准备马上就绪，精彩的赛事等待着我们。首先，让我们一起欢迎战队登场。选手们已经全部抵达了战场，让我们再次用掌声和呐喊声欢迎总决赛队伍 EDG RNG。同样，在我们的峡谷之巅，我身边2位老朋友，也是今天的老对手，也已经准备就绪了。首先，我们要问一下 RNG UCI 再次站上了总决赛的舞台，有什么话对粉丝和对对面EDG说呢？
今天厂长，你的场里没有猪仔，但是恶狗有1只。
优仔这边说完了赛前这句话，我们要问一下 EDG Clear Now 有什么话对优仔和 RNG 说？
就希望我们2个队能带来精彩的对决吧。然后，不管是我们谁捧上这个奖杯，都是实至名归。
两边都已经准备就绪了，蜀道争雄，一决锋芒。2018英雄联盟职业联赛春季赛总决赛现在开始。
很多人没想到我们能杀进决赛，从上海、杭州到成都，我们打算征服每个主场的观众。
进了这么多次决赛，被看好或被看衰的情况都有，拿了这么多次冠军，还有什么好怕的？
那些不和谐的声音还有质疑的眼神，我只想证明他们错了。지금 이 순간을 위해서 저희는 많은 노력을 했습니다. 지금 저희는 준비됐습니다.
去年夏天的情景还历历在目，我每天都在告诉自己，这样的剧情绝对不会重演的。
要我拿多少次 MVP 才能证明我是最成功的？打完这次决赛，希望不会再有人质疑了。
我这个人的特点就是从来不会怯场，就像平常的一局游戏一样打倒你。
在队伍需要我的时候，我会上场，给予对手致命一击。
蓝 buff、红 buff、大龙、冠军，我全都要。 我想要成为 EDG 的未来，我准备好接受这个考验。
我打职业到现在已经6年了，每一次的失利都会让我更加渴望冠军。打败我吧，我只会变得更强。
有多少人想看我们赢，就有多少人想看我们输。现在我又一次站在这里，就是想要告诉所有人，我才是游戏的主角。
Weeks, 14 weeks across 14 teams across 13 weeks, 4 different stadiums, and today we are entering into the 5th. Welcome to the Chengdu Magic Cube, everyone. The energy in here is absolutely magnetic. You cannot believe how many people we've got here in the crowd, and we are so very excited to be bringing you here along with us for this grand finals. Welcome. My name is Dom Romer. Joining me here on the broadcast, we've got Barento Raz Mohammed and Clement Chu. Gentlemen, I gotta say, are you having fun yet? This is, it's so big. This is phenomenal.
It's massive, but I still don't know if the Magic Cube can fit the capacity crowd's passion. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, the rivalry is already going on right there. We can hear the mind games from Clear Love. He's starting low and humble. He's going like, hey, you know, whoever plays here, they deserve to win the championship. Let's have a good match. But Uzi's, he's coming out with fire. He's like, you have no pigs in your pig farm today, but I have one waiting backstage. Of course, referring to MLXG.
Oh, well, we might just get to see that a little bit later. But of course, for those of you who haven't been paying attention to the LPL so much, let's bring up the bracket so we can show you what happened. Because you're probably thinking, oh, RNG, EDG, this is exactly as expected. Well, you're wrong. We had one of the biggest upsets in LPL history just a week ago to lead us here.
And remember, RNG had to run the bracket because they were in 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. So going up against WE, Snake, and you already mentioned it, the massive upset up against Invictus Gaming in Game 5 brought them here today versus Edward Gaming.
And on the other hand, EDG was another unexpected appearance in the final as well. They only got to 1st place in week 9, and Clearlove did not play until the final set. He did, however, come back against Rogue Warriors and secure them the 3-1 victory. So now we see him once more in the finals.
And perhaps that's exactly what you're expecting as we get into the matchup proper. As you can see on the bottom of your screen, on the top of your screen, every logo possible. It's Edward Gaming versus Royal Never Give Up. This is Clear Love set versus Uzi.
Yep, El Clasico. You talked about it before the day, into the day. Both of these teams are the most experienced LPL teams at the end of the day. So that's what brought them here, even though like no one would have saw it coming.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
So let's actually get into the tail of the tape because, as you said, this is El Clasico. This is a matchup that has happened 4 times. Excuse me, this is the 4th time this has happened. 3 times before. Again, Edward Gaming. They are the most dominant team in LPL history, appearing in 7 finals and winning 6 of them.
And if we talk about Edward Gaming versus RNG, the last 3 times they met, 2016 Spring Finals, Summer Finals, 2017 Summer Finals. They've gone up against each other time and time again. RNG took them once, but Uzi was not on the team at the time. He is still the crownless king.
Yep, and he's still looking for that crown again. RNG has been the better international team. Uzi's gonna go down in history as the best LPL player ever. But the Mad Dog, domestically speaking, has always been the underdog when it comes against EDG. EDG, the last time they met in the finals, they reverse swept RNG. And Uzi even admitted Clearlove was in his head in Game 3, Game 4 with those level 2 cheese ganks.
Yeah, and that's something that we have to talk about because, again, this is a long history between Uzi and Clearlove. These 2 players competing for years now at this point, but it's not just 2 players on the stage going for a 1v1. This is an all-stars, ladies and gentlemen. This is the LPL. We've got 5 players on each team. How is this matchup going to be decided? Is it just going to be Uzi versus Clearlove, Raz?
We keep talking about the Mad Dog versus the Pig Farmer, but the Pig Farmer's in the back. He's the 6th man here today because Haru's the one starting up. And the reason for that is because Edward Gaming, split after split, just have cogs coming through, new talent, fresh blood. Ray, Mouse, Jinjiao, Name, it always feels like there are new players coming through, and the reason why they can make it to the finals is because it's the support staff that comes through. Aaron, No Faye. It's the machine as a whole that keeps on driving.
But on the other hand, RNG is the sum of their sheer talents. That's how they win games. They have so many all-stars. They're the second superstar team in the LPL. And this offseason, they even bolstered that. They retained Uzi, they kept on to Xiaohu, and they got Karsa from the LMS, where I came from, and they also got Zatai, the veteran here. They're a messy team sometimes. They're a team I love to watch, but I would hate to coach. They do come back, however. You can never keep all of their talents down. They're a whack-a-mole of superstars right here. So remember WE Game 1, they won a 3v5 team fight to come back into the series. And against Jackie Love, Uzi sniped him down to come back from 7K. You can never count out RNG.
Well, now that we know we've got raw talent versus organizational strengths with these two teams, what is going to decide today's finals? Who is going to end up being today's champion, and what's going to make that happen?
All right. It comes down to the bottom lane, but to make it a little bit more focused, it's Uzi.
Okay.
Because when he came back from Chinese New Year's, the Mad Dog was unleashed. Specifically, the playoffs is when we got to see such hype plays from Varus, Kog'Maw, and in the front of your screen, Kai'Sa. I'm so damn sure we're going to be seeing it tonight. And if you give him that Kai'Sa pick, he's going to pop off.
And the bot lane is just where all the action and where all of the resources go on these teams. If you look at the GD at 15, that's #1 and #2 in the LPL. Raw gold stats at 15, that's #1 and #2 in the world. Get out of the way, Faker, Prey, Bjergsen, you're not even close. Also, the action has to be mentioned as well. Both of these teams, they like to set up early action for these carries to set them up. And that kill participation at 15, it's #1 and #2 in any other region. It's 3 times as much combat they've seen compared to an average LCK ADC.
And you know, they're just making the resources count because damage percentage for both Uzi and iBoy off the charts. That's why they're here tonight, because they're a bottom lane focused team and they're making it work.
Obviously, you want to try to put your money on what you already know to be a very strong lane. So the two teams emphasizing on that bottom lane, but these are not two AD carries that just want to sit there and farm. We got to look to the rest of the map and how it affects that. How do these teams set that bottom lane up to succeed?
All right, Clement, I'm going to start on this one first because it's EDG that's going to be throwing the first punch. We know all about them because starting from the beginning, their priority, I said priority because 70% win rate for Taliyah and the Varus picks come through. They go straight towards the blast cone. They have amazing setup for plays like these to get the dive across because they've done it to Rogue Warriors. They're going to do it to RNG. This is a great clip of what happened in week 6 of the regular season, and it might happen here today.
And if the mid pick is about priority for EDG, it's about elimination from RNG. Their path to the bot lane is first to kill the enemy mid laner first. They've done this with picks like Swain and Zoe. This is why Xiao has been having a great playoff run. He's taking people off guard. He's playing a different style. And this is also why MLXG has started over Karsa up until this point, because they play for the 2v2 before they go bot.
And of course, these paths to the bottom lane, so capable of deciding such important matchups, so much riding on the line for these teams to track where those bottom lanes end up getting set up. Is it going to be through the mid lane? Is it going to be through the jungle? And how they end up maneuvering around that. Of course, we'll be keeping track for that throughout the duration of the series. But now we got to get to the next question. We know how the teams want to prioritize that bottom lane, how they're going to set it up, but there's always an ace in the deck, something that can upset the whole hand and change things around. If you've got an X factor, if you've got something that tips the scales in one team's favor, what's that going to be? Clement, we'll start with you.
I'm looking forward to Ray. Statistically speaking, he's the worst LPL top laner, but that hasn't been the case against RNG, against Let Me. He's pulled out his Revan in the last pick, and he's chopped Let Me to little incy bits. They couldn't find him after the game, and that really changes a lot about the matchup. They could take away the 1-3-1 from RNG, and it could make EDG a bit more diverse. They don't have to put all the eggs into the bot lane if they can get Ray on a carry.
Well, we'll have to see if they can actually get Ray on that carry. To follow up on that, do you still think it's going to be Ray when we see Zatai starting for
he's challenging
RNG?
you.
I'll tell you about that during my predictions, but Zatai going up, it does go in the favor of RNG.
Okay. And Raz, who's your X factor for this?
All right, I'm going to break the rules a little bit because it's going to be X factors for me.
Oh, multiple?
Yep. Number 1, it's going to be Xiaohu. Because we know what Xiaohu can do during playoff time. When he gets to playoff time, he starts to show off. He starts to really flex on the Swain pick specifically. We already saw that earlier on, and it's going to be a major break. He even brought up the Zoe. My God, we didn't see. We saw one Zoe out of him in the regular season. It wasn't that good. And then he comes in the playoffs, and he showcases that he can do whatever he wants and flex the kit to the champion. Going to number 2, though, Scout. It's all in the mid lane.
Same lane.
Yeah, it's the same damn lane, and I'm going to stick to it. Because Scout, we've already talked about his high highs, and we got to see that during the playoff time when they went up against Rogue Warriors. I'm afraid of the lows, too, because if he doesn't get the 3 picks that we're looking for him, the Talias, even the Swains as of late that he was able to showcase strength on, and the Azir, then I'm worried about his champion pool.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that champion pool because draft is a whole nother can of worms that we'll have to crack into in just a little bit. But still, we've got to talk more about these teams and these organizations as we get ready for this matchup, specifically looking at the 6th man. It's not just the 5 players on stage. As these teams have been getting larger and larger, we've got additions like Let Me and Zatai. You mentioned Zatai and Karsa, coming in for RNG this split. On the other side, for Edward Gaming, Haro sort of came in as the jungler, and now you've got Clearlove on the bench. Which of these teams has the better 6th man, the better bench, if you will?
I'm going to take this.
All right, go ahead.
Because you can't steal mine, and this is where I come out ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Clearlove.
Oh, yeah?
You can't take it.
He doesn't count.
Yes, he does. He is literally the 6th man. 4 games played in the regular season, coming up against BLG in the final day. And then, of course, when we got to see him going up against Rogue Warriors. So he is always an X factor because domestically he shows off. The only questions, the only memes that come down is when he goes off into international play. But we're still in the finals, and he can come strong.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. The best 6th man is Clearlove if he does count. But I don't really count him because he's always been on stage. He's been the one controlling Haro.
All right.
He's about control and cunning. He's willing to pull a lot of those unexpected moves in the playoffs. We've seen the level 2's ganks quite often when he actually plays. And he starts EDG off on a good foot. It's just experience.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it definitely shows for the team. I do got to push back against that a little bit. What if you have both Zatai and, or sorry, in this case, Karsa and Let Me and MLXG versus Clearlove? You've got 2 players versus 1. Do you still take Clearlove?
I will still take Clearlove, but remember we've seen a lot more of MLXG during the playoffs because he's played every set up until today, and we've seen the highs of MLXG. His Gragas barrels or ultis have been really phenomenal, and even though you can question where he is on the map, sometimes it feels like he's just not in sync with what the strategy ultimately is, but major moments, he hits them.
But I gotta vouch for my boy Karsa here because he's a secret weapon. There's a reason he's been held back for so long right now, and I think that reason is because the synergy that Xiaohu and Karsa can display on the map. We've seen EDG ban out Karma all this time. You know what Karma Lee Sin, that combo, where that combo came from? It came from the Flash Wolves. That was Maple and Karsa's old trick in the book. This Karsa and Xiaohu, they're gonna go into the jungle and they're going to kill Haro over and over again. They have this strategy set up. They've been waiting so long to actually utilize it.
And here's the thing. I'm going to stop you right there. You're talking about this secret weapon. The man has played the most of the majority of the LPL games in the regular season over MLXG. We were talking about it because we were really wondering why MLXG was playing throughout the regular season, or at least the playoffs, when it felt like Karsa was the better jungler, or at least the more meticulous jungler, surgical jungler. He was always tracking people, but in a smarter fashion when MLXG was just trying to brawl them up.
Yep.
So that being said, I don't count him as a 6th man just because he has been the main
primary
player.
man, yeah. So, well, I guess that's the same question that we have to apply to Clearlove as well. Can we still consider him a 6th man if he just swoops in for the last few sets of the series?
I mean, yeah, he is.
Well, there you go.
There
Okay.
we have it.
I don't. You've seen him come to the arena in the stadium, even when he wasn't starting or playing. He's always been controlling Haro. You know, he's kind of like a coach that just put on the jersey and suddenly showed up. So I think he's part of the org, like you said earlier.
And here's the thing: just to come out and be honest with the people out there, I feel like Haro's is getting better throughout the playoff time. So we're heavily criticism throughout the regular season. In fact, when I came out in week 7 for my jungle tier list, he wasn't even there. But now in the playoff time, I don't even know if Clearlove shows up today.
Well, now we've heard all about the teams. The players are on stage getting ready. I cannot wait to get us into this. But first, I gotta know, gentlemen, who are you going to take in this matchup? El Clasico round 4. Is it going to be the Mad Dog or is it going to be the Pig Farmer? Raz?
I think it's going to be the Pig Farmer, man. I feel like EDG run counter to EDG strategy, or at least RNG strategy. And we saw what happened when it was going up against Rogue Warriors. So EDG should be able to hit them and hit them quickly.
It's the year of the dog. It's going to be a 3-1 EDG. They don't have enough options. They're one lane team against a 3-lane team. iBoy hasn't won a game in the past 40 games when he's behind in gold at 15 minutes. Listen to me. Uzi is going to get crowned today, and he's going to do it because he has company.
Oh, very bold words. Gentlemen, this is so exciting. We're just about ready to get in. But first, before we do, we got a chance to see what the players think about this matchup. And not that wishy-washy, I hope it's going to be a good game stuff. We got that real fire. Hey, production, roll the tape.
决赛和RNG相遇的话，其实遇见过很多次，然后其实我们的胜率会更高，然后这次我也有信心赢下。
但我觉得今年他们在国内应该没有RNG强，他们上路总是选大树这种英雄嘛，就会让人感觉对线会挺无聊的。其实
RNG는 마오카이를 무서워할 게 아니라 저를 무서워할 것 같습니다.
EDG 的瑞选手的话，在我看来确实是非常帅的一位选手。
去年的话，田野开团啊、保人啊，然后线上都比我厉害，线上他也不输啊，然后指挥他也不输，这指挥还比我强。
去年你说你什么都不如我，我觉得今年也是一样的。
你们不要欺负我，我怕我拉不住小狗，把你们杀得太惨。
我觉得悠哉你肯定拉不住啊，只有我能拉住他。
求求你这个人太过分了，这个人太过分了，别说话，别说话，别说话。
梅克应该在辅助里面是最强的。我挺想跟他说了一句，和你合作真是太愉快了。
在打牌吗？等着你花都谢了。你是哥哥还是妹妹？
我觉得 iBoy 是一个新生代非常有实力的一个 ADC。我的建议就是你在对线的时候要小心一点。
行，他说的都对。
其实我的霞挺菜的，还是比赛的时候别翻吧。
行，他说的都对。
还有我的李锦，其实
行。
总决赛的话，我们队尽快3-0正面下班。
我们也想3-0早点下班。
我觉得应该会打满 BO5吧。
你现在都是要我命，你知道吗？
听说那个男人最近风头很盛嘛，但是最近内战换人的队伍，像 TSM、G2这种都已经集气了。那么 EDG 是不是要顺应一下潮流呢？
夏天快要到了，我不知道春之虎地还有什么作用。
其实我最近对自己很有信心的，现在春之虎地就什么。
Luffy 也是88年，就我也是88年，就年纪一样嘛。但是我觉得我还比他炒作厉害一点。
게임할 시간이 정말 많은가 봐. 나는 분석하느라 정신이 없는데.
真的要我对常常说骚话的话，我说不出口，因为我真的很崇拜他，他是我的偶像。
我的粉丝总是会吊打我，所以说我希望教练打卡萨的时候安排哈罗上。
我想安排一下厂长，我觉得你有可能都见不到他。香锅，你要小心一点你的野区，不要被我养猪了。
洛言觉得会。
我觉得厂长还是应该多去研究下 MSI 的对手，还是少研究下我们的。
RNG 现在没有什么好研究的吧，2级抓下就完事了。我真的已经在研究 MSI 的对手了。
我们在决赛也碰过这么多次面了，骚话也不多说了。
我觉得麻辣香锅除了年龄比我小一点，其他方面都没有我强。
我觉得我的猪比他的猪猛一些，因为我的是蜘蛛，他的只是一头小猪仔。最近盲 C 也加强了，是不是我们都应该拿出来溜一溜？反正你也打过4000多，我也打过2000多。
可以啊，我一个洛言顶你2个香锅。
希望这次我们都能帮小狗拿一个冠军。
我们 EDG 一直以来的目标也是冠军，这次我想以一个 slow 型的打野拿一次冠军。
蓝 buff、红 buff、大龙、冠军，我全都要。
As is the Sichuan province of spiciness, is equally spicy words coming out from both EDG as well as RNG. Fans have been trickling into the arena all day today, and now it's absolutely packed. Both cheering for the finalists here. RNG taking on EDG. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matthew Stewart. Joining me is the ever so lovely Indiana Frosco in black, as well as the handsome Zach Rusty Pie. About to get into the first game, this best-of-5 series, and it's not the series that we expected coming into the finals, especially after the dominance we saw from IG and Rogue Warriors during cross-conference.
Again, if you didn't watch the LPL, everyone thought that this was going to be Invictus Gaming versus Rogue Warriors. No one expected RNG versus EDG, and Rusty, it frankly feels like fate.
I don't think anyone could have predicted this but for fate itself, honestly. The 3rd and 4th place match was meant to be our finals, but RNG, EDG, they're here once more, and it seems like no matter how hard you try, you can't remove them from the main stage.
And you can hear the crowd because it means so much for these two teams. So let's start with their lineups. RNG, the top lane, they're going to be starting with Tatai, Kasa in the jungle, Xiaohu in the mid lane, the Mad Dog, Uzi, as well as Ming in the bottom lane.
And of course, Uzi is fighting today to finally lift that trophy. The Crownless King himself wants it bad.
And EDG's Ray in the top lane, Haro in the jungle, Scout in the mid lane, iBoy and Mako round out the bottom.
During the first MSI tournament, this was the team that took home the trophy. They want to win here today. They want to go back to MSI and they want to take back what was once rightfully theirs.
And this is 5 back-to-back finals appearances for RNG since the rise of 2016. They are challenging EDG's legacy as the most dominant team, but they are simply the final boss, and EDG just happened to cut them down every single time.
And as we said earlier, this means so much for both these teams. For RNG, not only is it a chance to pick up their second title, but on top of that, Tatai, he's never won an LPL title, one of the oldest players in the LPL. Uzi, he is the crownless king, never picked up a title himself either. It means so much for them to win here today, whereas for EDG to continue their dominance, pick up another win here and try and pick up the title at MSI.
Exactly, getting to MSI, the first step of course is going to be in this set today, but if they get there, the opportunity to equalize the amount of flags they got up on the banners there and the walls of MSI, rivaling SKT is always going to be something that they're looking towards. But RNG are coming into this the favorites today, Fish. That's the thing you have to look at. EDG, I would call them the underdogs for the first time, but you know this matchup, so is that ever really fair to say?
And it's been a while because they started as the underdogs and now they are favorites.
And ultimately, the TLDR is this is a Triple H matchup. This is hype, this is history, and this is the highest stakes you will ever see in the LPL.
And going into game one, we have to look at the picks and ban priority for these two teams. The desk already touched on the two different play styles between EDG and RNG, but statistically, these two teams are dead even, down to what they pick as well.
Yeah, we can look at the play styles. I actually want to take a step back and look at the players regarding those styles as well, because it is Casa starting today for RNG, and through all of the playoffs, we actually saw MLXG, the hot pot that can do some wild choices, but he can also win the game by himself. Casa, a bit more of a tracking jungler, and my speculations for this is that he actually wants to find where his opponent in Haro is and keep him down. Remember, game one of a finals in his first split, very easy to try and attack him and find a weakness.
And there are different champion pools that they can start to play with. Karsa more known for the Zac, the Skarner, like Rusty is saying, these tracking junglers. MLX G didn't appear, it was MLX Jesus, and he's pulled out things like the Trundle, like the Gragas that we've seen in the LCK finals. So you're looking at slightly different champion pools and slightly different strategies that they can blitz at EDG.
And Kaz has always been a very stable and solid jungler for RNG, so it makes sense to start him in the best of 5 grand final. Whereas MLXG, when we saw him start against Snake, when we saw him start against Invictus Gaming, he always had a strategy prepared for that first game.
And remember, what you want to do here if you are RNG against EDG is bring out Clear Love early. Do not let them keep him as a secret weapon. You need to win game one to bring the god of the jungle out.
And you can play those mental games. We know that Uzi himself has said it. Clear Love can get into his head, so get him out early, get it out of the way, and look towards the championship.
They certainly can, but for now, this is the first game of the best of 5. The 6 men have no impact just yet, and let's see what these two teams decide to prioritize in the first ban phase. Talia as well as Varus taken away, Ornn and Kai'Sa banned out by EDG.
And we say this time and time again, Talia is the pick that must be banned against EDG. It is Scout's best champion, but more importantly, it gives them access down at the bottom lane between 8 and 10 minutes. That's where EDG love to play, right in that pocket. They're a mid-game focused tempo team. You're looking for picks like the Varus, like the Olaf, like the Talia to get them on the right foot.
And I'm going to echo that with the third ban, actually. I find that to be very important of the Olaf banned by RNG. And the reason that I think that is important is you may start to see the Galio compositions coming out of the mid laner of Xiaohu here. Olaf can just casually stroll through that Galio ultimate and doesn't get affected, so it's a good ban to start it on.
Now waiting for the final ban from EDG. It could be the Sejuani, but it's not. Karma is going to be banned out against their mid lane.
And just echoing what Clement was saying, it's the Karma, which he was talking about that possible strategy with Karsa, with Xiaohu, looking for that Lee Sin Karma combo to just blitz into the jungle and cause havoc for Haro. There is one piece of the puzzle now missing.
Now we have to see what the first few picks are going to come out here. Big picks like Swain, still available for RNG when they're going to be running Tatai in the top lane. They could be throwing the Swain up there.
Ooh, Caitlyn Morgana possibly.
Caitlyn Morgana, you've got Zaya Rakan, you've got Sejuani, the pick that's played 3 times more than any other jungler by these two teams as well.
And also, remember that EDG first pick Alistar all the time. That is available, and instead of going for that RNG, they do choose the Morgana. Again, maybe a priority decision. They didn't go towards Swain, which they could flex. Again, a big priority here, knowing full well what EDG should be picking in their first rotation.
And the first pick is going to come out as Swain. Carry pick already locked in for EDG.
And the thing is there's no pressure right now for EDG to grab their bot lane because they do have that access to the Zaya and the Rakan. They could pick it up here just to hide their picks, but ultimately EDG have no problem being pinched in the ADC or support pool.
And instead they look towards their jungler first, but it's not going to be Sejuani. They lock in Trundle as their first pick for Haro.
Definitely a good option here to go towards the Trundle. Controlling the jungle is a big deal here. Usually with press the attack Trundle, it's hard to 1v1 them. So when you look towards the jungle position for Kai'Sa, what he plays is a big question.
It does indicate to me that that's probably going to be a Swain in the mid lane. Trundle's gank access and pass towards the mid lane with Pillar and Swain's displacement are incredibly strong as gank options, which means that RNG should really be looking at the Galio or some other champion that can absorb a lot of those consistent pressure points.
And they can throw Galio into the mid lane now to pair up with Camille, but they don't. They don't utilize the pick of Camille as a flex instead, locking in Zach as their jungler of choice.
It's now going to have to force EDG. I don't think they're going to leave the Galio open, especially because we have seen the Zach Galio combo played by RNG to brutal efficiency.
Now, the interesting thing here to remember, of course, is that we're getting into the second ban phase, and EDG have the choice of flexing Swain to top lane, which is unlikely, and picking it or banning it away. So that's always going to be a potential forced ban out of your opponents, as we get to see a Janna very rarely seen.
Very, very rarely seen. Only a 4% ban and 5% pick rate in the LPL. Still patch 8.6 that the nerfs haven't hit her just yet, but not prioritizing their bottom lane AD carries for these two teams just yet, who are the stars of the show in this game.
And it's really important to note that Janna's just good into Zach. So straight up, that is a very good pick for Zach, and so is Trundle. Both of those options can cancel his Elastic Slingshot without having to expend an ultimate or a summoner spell, and I think that's why they've gone for a third.
There's also a ton of AD carries that are still left open on the board that excel really well with the Janna pick. We can see the Tristana, we can see the Caitlyn, we can also see the Jhin.
Even mid laners still left up and available. Rise being banned out against RNG. They do not go towards the Azir priority pick. It's not even on Xiaohu's top 4 played champions. Whereas for the side of Scout, it is his most played in the league. But RNG were the first team to punish him for blind picking.
Through the rest of this ban phase, though, you're looking at the mid laners to be focused. Again, we mentioned the Galio a couple of times with the Camille, and the Rise is already gone. There is the likes of a Cassiopeia if you're going to play Protect your AD carry. The Azir is the exact same philosophy as the Cassiopeia for that. So we do look towards RNG's draft, and EDG kind of spying in on the fact that whatever Uzi picks will be a big deal, and that's where Caitlyn comes to mind.
Likewise, cracking that Azir from blue side, it means it's much harder for RNG to hold ground and attempt to stall out the game. Because not only that, you're denying a stall champion like Azir who can scale up, but also holding around the Baron Pit is so easy to do with Azir. So if EDG want to play a very quick, mid-game focused type of game, then they want to crack that immediately.
Well, the first ban that came out from RNG in the second phase was Jax, probably targeted towards the top lane against Ray. Second ban going to be Shen. That's a flex pick between both Ray as well as Mako. Scout can still pick up the Swain heading into mid lane if he needs. Waiting to see what the first pick in second phase from EDG is going to be. Could be the supporter bot lane, could be a top laner, could even be a mid lane pick.
You'd still be going, yeah, AD carry role specifically. We saw a couple of ADs hover. Caitlyn in particular works super well with the Janna, denies it from RNG, and there is so much supporting stuff even there with the Trundle having a Zeke's that can keep that Caitlyn dealing damage.
And again, when we say that Edward Gaming are a mid-game focused team, we're not talking about the mid-skirmish. We're talking about the mid-tempo. They love picks like the Caitlyn and the Janna because it's about cracking those towers and then immediately rotating their bot lane around the map, acquiring quick gold leads and closing out games early. These are not bloody 5v5 oriented teams.
Clement said it best. One of the stats that iBoy leads against Uzi is the goal difference against opposition at 15 minutes. And when he is not ahead of the opposite AD carry at 15 minutes, he has lost every single game this split.
It's because Edward Gaming are a very binary team. They have a single win condition. It's about getting that bot lane snowballed and then using that effectively around the map. If you deny them that, they have nothing else.
They're going to be looking to try and set up as much as they can. But RNG want to try and throw a couple of spanners in the works. And what is this? Rakan's been locked in for RNG.
I'm quietly hoping it's mid, but I have a feeling it's going to be the Morgana that's going into that position. We'll have to see when the draft subsides. Hold your horses with RNG for now. We wait for EDG to lock in the rest of their composition.
Let's see if EDG are going to throw in a mid laner or a top lane pick for their final pick here. Swain was locked in, can still be flexed to scout in the mid lane, or Ray could take it towards the top side of the map. And final pick for EDG is going to be Fiora.
Diversifying that portfolio, Ray has started to step up. We know that he has that carry potential from his Cloud9 days, but on Edward Gaming, he was smashed into that cookie cutter mold and made to play the tanks. When he does shine, it's when he gets those signature picks, like the Riven, like the Camille, and now the Fiora. But if you're not named the Shy, you shouldn't be playing Fiora in our league.
But he's got to carry in the top lane for the first game of this best of 5 final. That's a statement if I've ever seen one from EDG. But the elephant in the room is to see, is this going to be a Rakan support, or is it going to be Rakan going into mid lane? Something we've seen in solo queue, but unlikely to take place in competitive.
It should be mid lane. It should just be the Morgana mid lane rather, Rakan in the support role. But the Morgana having been chosen at all and flexed towards mid lane is what it feels like, with a higher priority on the Rakan as a last pick, speaks towards the style of RNG's drafting and how it's not so much a pigeonhole, it was definitely a strategy, changes their compositional style around having a Kog'Maw 4.
I mean, ultimately, we did say that we wanted them to have some sort of mid lane pick. We thought it would be the Galio that could absorb the pressure, that could absorb the attention. So if you're Trundle, if you're Swain, if you're trying to use that sick combo in the mid lane, that much harder to do now with Morgana locked in.
Certainly is. Morgana's going to be able to clear out the waves, push relentlessly against Swain. But we haven't seen Morgana in the mid lane too frequently. Not only in the LPL, but internationally as well. very rarely crops up.
Yeah, and I will say, speaking towards EDG briefly as well, their composition is super stock standard, what you would expect from them. The Janna's a bit abstract as a champion of choice, but the style makes perfect sense. They've got the Caitlyn Janna in the bottom lane. They want to release that bottom lane, get some pressure mid, and start roaming around the map, as is EDG, as a team style.
It means that they have different options about how to achieve it, though, because it is a Fiora on the top side that can bounce between mid, top, get one of those lanes snowballing, and then eventually go and pick up their Caitlyn and Janna.
Or even without MLXG starting for RNG, they've already found a strategy to throw a spanner in the works for game number 1. This time it's going to be on the back of Xiaohu in the mid lane, picking up that Morgana. No Sejuani to be seen by either of these two teams. Zac was the tank that was picked up by RNG. We've got Camille in the top lane, so 2 carries are going to duke it out as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the Fiora in the top lane for Ray. The same thing here with Zatai. He's a bit of a wild card with the champions that he can play, but he's also a mid laner turned top laner. He can carry.
And he's looking to try and take home his first title as well. One of the oldest players in the LPL. It's going to be game number 1 of this best of 5 series. Let's get on to the riff for the match. And normally we're at the Super Brand Mall. These teams take turns to cheer, but it's chaos here in Chengdu.
We have split the arena in half, Fish. There is no opportunity to have a chant off. They're all just excited. They're all going to be yelling against each other as EDG takes on RNG.
And again, a lot of the focus is going to be on the mid lane matchup, not specifically the 2 players in the mid lane, but how they work around that to impact the bottom side of the map. Because that's how both these teams will be playing throughout the split.
Yeah.
Again, RNG very brawl heavy. They look to try and pick fights where they can. They're a 2-team fight team. 2 team fights to win the game. EDG need to constantly set up. And that's how they have faltered sometimes.
And they've actually drafted themselves into a very strong 2v2. You often see the Swain and the Trundle working in tandem to get picks, and they rotate as a duo down on the bottom side of the map where they've got the Caitlyn Janna. But on the opposite side, you've got a Zac and a Morgana that is so good at ganking and preventing ganks from happening in the first place. Morgana should be running usually the Summon Air if you want to win lane, Unsealed Spellbook if you want to have Ignite to not lose lane early, but then you want to teleport around the map. And I think that's what we're going to see here from Xiaohu, as he has gone towards the Spellbook.
There's also the option that it's not just about the Zac and Morgana. Zac, a usually slower, ganking jungler around the level 5 mark, but he wants to make plays happen. Also from blue side, it's that much easier as the support to gank. And since they prioritize the Rakan, if Uzi takes it back with Ming, if maybe he gets an advantage onto the Rift before the other team, they can look to be a 3-man gank onto the mid lane instead of just 2.
No Unsealed Spellbook coming out from the bottom lane support of RNG, instead of picking up Summon Area. A little bit more protection coming out from Ming to protect Uzi on the Kog'Maw, as well as that bit more offensive playstyle, as he has picked up the Spell Thief's Edge as well. Very early invade coming out from Haro, moving into the red side of Caster's jungle. Caster did a full blue side clear, and is now moving towards the bottom side of the jungle. Red buff may be taken by Haro here in game 1. He might just 3-buff Caster.
They are about to find each other potentially. His top lane is hard fighting. That was a turret tanking as well.
Tanking 2 shots at the turret on the top side of the map does win the trade against Ray.
You know, normally you would expect these types of nerves from players like Ray, like Haro, the newer members of Edward Gaming, playing in front of a 12,000 strong arena, but not so often from Zatai, such an established rookie that early on into the lane phase to give it up to the tower like that.
Tanking a few turret shots, but he did look like he was winning the push, winning the trade as well.
He immediately hits the pause. Sir, that's not what I intended to do.
Who put a turret there?
Turret should not exist.
Of course, clearly it does look like an issue with Zatai, the top laner for RNG. I'll be working on that one quick.
As soon as we get more information on when the issue is solved, we'll be able to get back to you and let you know what's going on. So we apologize for the technical difficulties. But to start the match, again, it's been nerves for some of the newer players, but it's been aggressive coming up from RNG as well.
And reminder, spare a thought to Zatai on your screen. This guy is number 3 of players in the LPL, toppled only by Clearlove, who is number 1, and Kid, who retired earlier this year, in number 2. He has played since he was 13 years old, and he has never won an LPL title. Formerly of Invictus Gaming, he was replaced by Rookie, forced up into the top lane, left for Snake, then came to RNG, and is now looking to finally claim that title. And he had to go through both teams to get here,
Taking
Snake
down both.
and IG.
Took down Snake and then took down Invictus Gaming, now in the grand final against EDG. Looking to try and pick up his first title alongside Uzi as well. The Crownless King, he has yet to pick up a title on top of that.
And there's a reason that you get to see him play carries in the top lane, like the Camille, like the Fiora potentially later on as well. That's because he was a mid laner turn top laner, turn mid laner, turn top laner. He could not make his mind up with roles, but he excelled at all of them, and he carries in all of them.
And his trade has always been he is a master of none, jack of all trades. He loves to play different champions, has weird, wonky matchups, and uses it as a gimmick. If he can find something weird that you don't understand how it works, that you don't understand the counter, he'll force you onto the back foot.
And we saw that in game number 5 against Invictus Gaming, where he pulled out the cinch, something that we saw during the NA LCS finals, but he played it to perfection, took a lot of pressure away from the top side, but allowed them to continue those bottom side executions and took them to the finals here. Satai's a player they constantly bring in for these strategies like MLXG. We haven't seen Let Me Start just yet either.
And that's Satai's strategy, but how he fits into the holistic scheme of RNG is more again of that bruiser, of that duelist. When Let Me comes in, he has a 60% kill participation, whereas Zatai only has around a 51%. So with Let Me, it's much more about the grouping, about the 5v5, about those big 1-2 team fights. With Zatai, it's much more about the slow burn, the lane phase, the side lane, the 1-3-1.
Which almost feels like they're doing a similar strategy to what we saw in Game 5 against Invictus Gaming, where Zatai is trying to create pressure on the top side of the map, allow Morgana to move into the bottom lane and create that 4-on-4 for RNG.
Definitely, but when you speak towards pressure, as we are back into this game, Haro is the man that was on your screen as we returned, and Haro is the man that took the red buff and the Raptors away from Casa. Someone who's meant to be a tracking jungler, someone who wants to scale, get levels, and look for some ganks on the Zac. He's being kept down early by Haro, and that is a very strong start for EDG's new jungler, rookie, in his first final.
So if you look at the minimap right now, Haro still has 3 camps to clear inside of his own jungle. Whereas Casa went to the bottom lane, picked up his Krugs, now has to go towards topside river to get Scuttlecrab. He is starving at the moment, and Haro is just going to keep clearing and farm up a storm.
And ultimately, he doesn't need to give any attention to EDG's bot lane in the Caitlyn and the Janna. He just needs to create that safety net. So it's great that he's blitzing in, that he's dropping down these deep wards in Karsa's jungle, that he's prioritizing the Scuttlecrab, and just creating a safe area where iBoy and Mako can constantly be pressured forward, constantly using the advantage of the Caitlyn-Janna matchup.
And I will say, as we've got a second, it should be quite calm around the mid lane specifically. That's a place that I actually want to take a second and look at, because it's a Morgana playing against a Swain, and you might be wondering why Morgana in the first place, right? Not just because you can diffuse ganks, but Swain's really weak early. His level 1 to 7 is a ramping phase until he can get further points into his Q, and his only form of crowd control gives a long time of I'm coming as top lane.
There's a gank coming out from Casa, top side of the map. Ray is able to dodge away from the crowd control, slides back in, gets a cleft to Manti Proc, and is going to continue pushing against Zatai. He burnt his teleport to get back into the lane. Zatai walked back.
I mean, was it a dodge or was it a miss? I think that Karsa is maybe holding back a little bit, playing some mind games. I'll hit the next one, trust me.
Well, there's nothing much that he could do. His entire jungle was cleared out by Haro, but moving back into that mid lane discussion. Xiaohu against Scout. Yes, it looks like Scout should be struggling against his Morgana push pick, but he's been pushing in against Xiaohu constantly throughout the entire early game.
If you want to push in Fish, you're not going to have mana to sustain yourself in that lane, so he does have to go back recall sooner rather than later if he wants to control Morgana. And at level 5, it's all over for Swain. The lane is completely pushed in against him for 2 whole levels worth of time, and that frees up Casa when he is power spiking on a Zac.
And I do want to take a minute to point at what's happening on our screen, although we may have to shelf it, as here comes Haro.
Haro's looking to try and get an early gank into the bottom lane. Uzi gets slowed down by Mako. Ignite this very early. Uses the heal, flashes away, takes some damage, trying to cut his one back. A first blood! It's going to be picked up by Haro. Ming's forced to retreat. EDG attack the bottom lane.
And Haro taking a page out of Clearlove's book, a very early 5-minute gank on Uzi bot lane. Uzi said it himself in the interviews beforehand. He got into his head. You can tilt him. He needs to control his own emotion. And so far, EDG target on Uzi.
Yeah, good awareness from Haro as well. He's got control of the enemy jungle. He knows the timers. He knows when Casa's going to show back up. They find him at the Raptors. They've got a control ward there. That was a very telegraphed play from EDG, but RNG don't have an option to counter that. They just had to try and back away as best they could.
And ultimately, when are you ever going to expect something like this? Yes, you can say RNG should have had the vision to be able to catch it. You can see that the Silk Road behind Dragon has already been prepped and ready for EDG with control wards, but it's a Janna Caitlyn lane, and it's a Trundle from red side. You never expect that type of gank.
You can see on the bottom right of your screen, minimap control ward was placed down very early into RNG's jungle, allowing Haro to rotate through that and get into the bottom lane for the gank. This is the opposite of what we expected. Karsa was meant to be the man coming in for RNG to track Haro, but Haro is performing exceptionally well.
It's very different styles of jungling, though, when you're a Zac versus a Trundle. Karsa is unable to track the Trundle this early on. Again, most of his gank priority is going to come at level 5. He now has that ability to do it, to start moving through the jungle with more tempo. So this is actually exactly as expected. Haro should control the first 7 levels. It just, in regular split, he almost did nothing with him. Now in the grand finals, he shows up.
And I will say that the kill was the one thing that RNG did not want to happen, because they are against a Caitlyn Janna. Remember, when we look at this with a further scope of what's going to happen next and what that means, if Caitlyn gets the bottom lane turret first, she's planted mid lane, no one stops that from happening, and she will be able to then siege. That unlocks EDG's entire strategy.
And now the Azir ban makes that much more sense, but you had to see this coming. So RNG knew that Caitlyn and Janna was going to be a thing, and they didn't leave themselves many options to deal with this if it gets parked mid.
No, they did not. And on top of that, it was Uzi that was taken down for the kill in the bottom lane. We already said at 15 minutes, if iBoy is ahead, he can win the match. We saw the statistics for EDG earlier. 72% win rate if he's able to pick up first blood, and a 72% win rate if they're able to pick up first turret. That bottom lane turret is one push away from EDG taking it down.
They actually need Karsa to hover for a very long time, a prolonged duration of hovering, because their mid laner is rushing a banner of command. That means he wants to stay near Scout for quite a long time himself, keep the Swain down and start to rotate down. What you would look at for RNG now is get that item spike if you could, and then come bottom to protect it. But even now, they're zoned out completely. There's no opportunity to utilize that strategy whatsoever. They are just stuck dealing with a siege.
And played exactly according to EDG's playstyle. They set up for a play, they make the pick bottom lane, they go for the push, and this turret is going to fall. RNG have not been able to disrupt their playstyle just yet, and it's a very early lead for EDG.
And yes, again, RNG didn't want the kill to happen, but this is pretty much played out exactly how these compositions should at this point in the game. You were always going to lose that first turret first. It was just a matter of how far could you slow them down. So RNG, they're still not completely shut out of game 1 yet. They just need to sit back, wait for their power spikes on the Kog'Maw, and look for that 5v5 backline threat dive. That's a Camille, that's a Zac, that's a Kog'Maw. You can light up anything if you get them back there.
So what do they have to do now until that point where they are back into the match? Because already EDG pick up a 2,500 gold lead for themselves just 9 minutes into the game. It seems like a sizable advantage that they can work with to continue making these set plays.
Yeah, step one is definitely to get some vision out before EDG try and start any kind of sieges. You would expect, once again, as a Caitlyn, she's going to go mid lane or she's going to go top lane. RNG have already swapped as a response. Yep. And I think what you would want to do in this situation is match the side lanes and hope that EDG do not go mid. Again, you've got the banner of command spike available. You can put that into the mid lane, and now you can look towards kills on the top side. So if you're looking at RNG, it is get kills now in the 2v2 if you can, or at least control it, pressure it, and keep that down. Continue the scaling for the Cog.
Yeah, utilizing the defensive vision to try to pick up some kills where you can on side lanes. What I don't like about RNG's composition, though, is I don't like the defanging of Xiaohu on a pick like Morgana. Normally, he has some sort of option like a Rise where he can threaten those side lanes, where they can kind of inch back some of these deficits at this point in the game with these picks. But on a champion like Morgana, it's much harder to do, and we just don't have the tape from Xiaohu to see how well he'll play it.
And so far he's being pushed underneath his turret. Karsa has not had the ability to relieve that pressure from Xiao, who went for the banner command, as you pointed out, Rusty first. Karsa's rotating up towards top side of the map. RNG know that Haro is in that tribe. She just cleared out a ward. EDG spotted out Ming earlier, but he has rotated through Fog of War into the visionless control of that brush. Now will be spotted as he roos back out.
I mean, ultimately, the top side of the map have clear reads on both of each other. It's a 3v3 top. The problem is the bot side of the map. Zatai took some early tower shots. He's fallen down a little bit. He's got the tower or the minion wave pushed into him, but we need to keep eyes on Ray and Zatai, because this can be the X factor or the breaking point for this matchup.
It certainly could be. You can take a look at the runes that were picked up by Xiaohu. We've already talked about the unsealed spellbook. First teleport going back into the mid lane to try and even out the push that was coming out from Scout. Now EDG, they've rotated 4 members up towards top side of the map. They're just sieging this turret, trying to take another objective.
Yeah, RNG have to do something. The longer that they sit like this, the more they're just going to passively lose ground. And at this point in the game, again, they're just trying to slow that down.
Even Ray is is rotating up towards the mid lane, now holding that lane against Xiaohu. Kasa waiting in the wings. There is no vision to spot him out. Ward gets placed down, but instantly swept out by the control ward that was placed in the try rush by Kasa. Tornado even looking to try and interrupt his jump.
Exactly. The Tornado, the Trundle Pillar can both be used to cancel the Zac jump. He can't be the sole contributor to an engage, especially not from a flank if someone's not threatening from somewhere else. Xiaohu needs to exist, but they have just completely mapped this out. They've put their mid laner top, they've put their top laner into mid lane, so Morgana's not even free anymore. And you're looking at Camille now, has to do something.
And they're going for a fight. Scout taking a couple of tower shots. Ming tries to initiate, but steps on a trap. Bounce back, gonna bring Swain underneath the turret. Scout's fine. Kill comes out from iBoy, keeps him alive. But RNG are fairly healthy as well. Tatai gets the first kill in this fight. Locks down iBoy as well. In the backlines, Ray has assassinated Ming. Still looking to threaten this one. Tatai forced the flash away. Uzi's going big. The Mad Dog is barking. Gets a kill for himself. Ray the assassin picks up his own double. It's gonna be a chaotic team fight between the two teams.
Ray still might be in danger, but it looks like he'll be able to skirt away from that one. A chaotic, messy team fight across the board. And iBoy's hubris being punished there. The flash forward to immediately get heel baited and then destroyed.
Yeah, thought he had the kill, but did not. And as the dust settles, it was a fairly even trade when you look at what's actually picked up here by RNG from a deficit. The fact that they traded at all. EDG were pressuring, RNG felt the need to force, and they matched it.
And this has been our biggest criticism of iBoy as well. We said that he is a player that doesn't really make mistakes, but he can get very cocky, and it seemed like that in the top lane fight as you watch it again.
I also think it was a pillar. I want to check the hook shot. I think Trundle was trying to disrupt Camille.
I mean, at the end of the day, they thought that he was going to get the kill. He just messed up the calculations here. Good from Zatai to actually flash in to ensure he stunned all of them during that as well. Hits 3. And the combo that you may not often see is actually the Morgana Camille, where you lock them down. Morgana's going to hit the crowd control, then back to back. And iBoy flashing forwards, thinks he has it.
And at the end of the day, this is a big win for RNG. Yes, a couple of kills were traded back and forth. And again, Fiora may be the X factor here as she now has the 2 kills, but she's not going to be the X factor right now. Better yet, it was the Kog'Maw getting a lot of those kills, getting a lot of the gold, and again, trying to slow down this eventual siege. That's 2 more waves later that EDG are finally able to take down top.
They haven't stopped the bleeding just yet though, because what was a 1.5k lead has now doubled. 3,000 gold being picked up by EDG. RNG are trying to take the consolation prize of the second elemental dragon. Ocean Dragon goes over to them.
And for what it's worth, RNG are actually even itemizing towards spiking a little bit earlier. The Zeke's convergence all but rushed from Rakan right now. Ming's trying to get that as soon as possible. That empowers Kog'Maw a little bit more. They want to ensure that when he gets his first complete item of the Guinzu's Rage Blade, they are ready to fight, and they want to stop the scaling from EDG that should have early control.
Especially with how iBoy's itemizing, but Casa's going for another fight, bringing Scout back in. Scout still tanking the turret. Ming jumps in, doesn't get the knockup, but Scout still taking a beating from this turret, doesn't get the final auto attack. Not many members of RNG left here to defend this one. Uzi will finally stand up, but they stop the siege.
And I want to kind of point out how these compositions are working. I think this was a brilliant read by RNG, actually. We'll see if they're able to win game 1, but you know that Edward Gaming love to play a tower-pushing, tempo-based game, and you have something like a Zac. It means that if EDG are never perfect with their warding as they approach these structures, Carso will absolutely punish them, and it's happened twice now.
And remember, they've lost to a composition similar to this, however, in 26 odd minutes when playing the Zac. Because IG, the team that beat them, can win lanes so hard and they can transition that individually with their strength to the rest of the game. So whilst it's a good read, it's still a big risk.
And let's talk about that pick coming out from Casa. Zac in the jungle. We know that he is the player from RNG to bring out the tank picks like the Skana or the Zac. But usually when Sejuani's left open in a draft, that's the pick that either of these two teams would have gone towards, and it wasn't the case here today.
But it wasn't going to be about the 5v5 or the initiation. We'll probably see Sejuani as the series goes on, just because she's pretty much good at everything on 8.6. But ultimately, this is very clearly defined. They're going to try to siege towers. We're going to try to disrupt that tempo and then just outscale them.
Well, Haro was able to track down Casa nice and early and shut him down. He had little to nothing to do during the early game, but Casa's caught back up, ahead in CS. He's a level ahead as well, and he's doing fine in the jungle. RNG just need to raise the puppy. Uzi, he's already picked up his first item. Rage Blade complete. You already talk about the Zeke's being rushed by Ming. That's not done just yet, but iBoy is now in a power trap. He only has the BF sword and the rapid fire cannon picked up.
But it's not necessarily a power trough as long as EDG don't fight, although Scout did not get that memo.
They're trying to chase down Uzi, locks him down, pulls him back on top of a trap! iBoy pops Uzi! Instant kill! They get a pick!
And that's the thing, at this point in the game, it would be fine for Caitlyn to have the rapid fire cannon because all she needs to do is siege the tower. The fact that Scout is able to find and disrupt RNG like that is massive.
It was all a ruse. RNG thought that they set up the trap for this fight, but it was actually EDG that had the upper hand. They pushed through the mid lane outer turret. 3 outer turrets are now down for EDG. RNG yet to pick up their first one. They increased their gold lead to just under 4,000 gold ahead.
And there was a neat little combo scene from EDG, of course, Swain pulling someone on top of a Caitlyn's trap. But looking past that as well, this is something that you will see more and more from them, but it'll just rarely hit. That's how hard it is to do, having a Swain and a Caitlyn next to each other when Swain's usually in the back line. Where I have to actually redirect my attention is to the Janna. Mako has been playing out of his mind in this first game. He's been keeping the Swain alive whenever Caster engages, and that seems to be the tipping point that changes all of this skirmish.
And watch how long Scout waits to pull Uzi back into that trap. Beautiful.
Very clean from Scout. Good communication with iBoy and good awareness, more importantly, of what the skirmish combo can be.
And the thing about this composition is if Xiaohu is not parked next to Uzi, there's not a lot that Ming can really do for him on the pick like Rakan. But ultimately, if you have your mid laner constantly with your ADC this early on in the game, you're just bleeding gold from Xiaohu possibly, or losing the ability to push or clear another side lane. So they need to be very smart about where they're making their lane assignments and with who.
A2, an iBoy stat that he triumphs over Uzi has now come true at 15 minutes. He is ahead of Uzi when it comes to gold. They do not lose games at this point. And it's going to have to be an upset from RNG to take game 1 back.
And of course, now's actually a pretty good time for RNG to utilize their Rift Herald that they've got right now on Casa and try and look towards an objective. If they really wanted to situate in the bottom lane with a Trinity Force spike, they could perhaps go down there. Uzi in the mid lane is going to have a pretty hard time sieging, especially when everyone else is there to defend the Herald. So Casa may be able to get just a little bit of extra damage off to a structure that can set something back for them with tempo.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Karst is probably the best jungler at recognizing these small little moments where you can take these inches back from Edward Gaming. Again, slowing them down some more, buying time for Uzi. Because being able to use a late game Rift Herald on EDG, 18 minutes in the game on an inner tower would be devastating.
Could have been lights out. That could have been how they win this first match, but taken away by Casa.
Would have snowballed Caitlyn past her power trough, so she'd be not only siege ready, but battle ready.
She's still in that power trough, but is close to complete right now. Uzi is still trying to pick up some items of his own, but they rotate iBoy towards top side of the map, where Haro and Scout have been already working on the top lane in a turret, and that's 4 turrets to EDG just 19 minutes into the game.
And honestly, that's just fantastic vision control from EDG. You can see it littered on your mini-map right now. They've got wards in that whole area, and they can rotate from mid, which they are controlling, knowing that Uzi picks up the wave, because Uzi always picks up the wave. They just go top lane, they get another structure.
And the credit has to be given to Haro. I know that it's Mako and Haro that are placing the vision, but Mako is on a pick like a Janna. He needs to have an escort there available to him, so much better synergy and teamwork already showcasing from Haro. We said over and over again in the regular split, Haro is a liability for Edward Gaming. He's just not quite gelling with them, but already a very different face appearing from him in the finals.
He started in the semis and he's now starts in the finals, doing well so far. He's going to find Casa, but Casa pulls him back. Initiation comes through and RNG, they get the pick.
Okay, there's domestic Haro.
He didn't have an escort in Mako this time around, so
That's
he
what it
got
was.
escort. Not actually aware that Casa was there at all, of course, but now RNG with an opportunity to push forwards themselves. The tie even on a flank to threaten, so that's just a free turret.
Pulling back the gold slightly, they even use Rift Herald to continue pushing through. 15 seconds on Haro. Scout is being chased down by Uzi. There is going to be a lot of damage from EDG's backline as Uzi just finds attack after attack onto the EDG squad.
And we talk about siege ready versus battle ready, and RNG are absolutely battle ready right now. The Ardent Sensor, the Rage Blade completed, as well as the Trinity Force. They grouped up, they looked for their moment, and they took their shot.
Gives them a turret, pulls the gold lead back slightly. Still 4,000 gold lead to EDG, which is something that you can't overlook. Something that can use quite well to try and snowball this game. iBoy is 1 item away from picking up 80% crit with an Infinity Edge already complete.
Yeah, he's starting to ramp up very strong now, so whilst we say that Uzi is battle ready with the side of RNG protecting him, having that Ardent Sensor, the Caitlyn is ramped up. Now we've hit the 2 points, the trough is gone, and we're looking towards a major strength in the AD carry position of EDG. And that means that, again, they've got Ray in a split pushing position, they've got him in the side lane. You want to keep that 4v4 and keep Zatai out of there.
It also means a lot of pressure on Mako as the responsibility will shift to him. As iBoy completes the 3 items, as he's able to go toe-to-toe, Caitlyn versus Kog'Maw, you're still looking at the Zac, you're still looking at the Camille. Mako must play this perfectly because the backline dive threat is massive from RNG.
Don't give him the caster's curse as well. We were praising Haro and look what happened to him in that final pick.
I mean, the SKT famous ult at Worlds that destroyed them, Mako was in the wrong position. He was standing on top of his ADC and he got deleted instantly as the Janna.
You can see how much priority RNG are putting on today AD carrying this match. Blue buff, red buff, it all belongs to Uzi. He's got 2 items picked up. The mid lane, Xiaohu or Morgana, is building to help Uzi in these fights. Zeke, as you mentioned, is being rushed by Ming at the moment. They're looking for a fight soon in a gold deficit against EDG.
You know, something you don't often see as well is the rapid fire cannon second from Uzi on his Cogmore. Traditionally, you'd look at a Wit's End, something that's a bit on hit, but gives resistances. For me, he just wants to maximize his damage output. He's gone towards the crit as bottom's all in.
Yeah, Ray has been locked down by Tatai, takes a lot of damage. Xiaohu is here as well, good damage and a pick in the bottom lane from RNG. Baron might be started by EDG, however.
You know, I had questions about Xiaohu on the Morgana and if he'd be able to pull, you know, the Spring Xiaohu special where he appears in a side lane and suddenly they're able to force a pick. Guess it worked out.
And that's the thing, we mentioned this combo before, now we get to see it in action. An actual 0-3-2 put in place by RNG. Remember, both have teleports, so EDG can't just purely force something as a response. And now RNG get themselves a turret because they're able to weave Xiaohu to the bottom lane completely for free.
And you need to constantly be looking for this. RNG are actually much better as a team when they're spread out over the map. Yes, this composition does want to be together to protect the puppy, raise him to maximum power, but Edward Gaming, they're more of the flying V. They like to stay bunched up, they like to rumble as a 5-man. So if RNG can continue to split them up, that's where EDG are usually weakest.
Again, EDG are one of the best team fighting teams in the LPL. We saw during the regular season when IG were 18-game win streak strong, 10,000 gold behind. EDG were able to upset them in a team fight. They still lost the game off the back of the follow-up team fight, but that's how strong they are when they can group up, when they can set up for the objectives and siege. RNG, you mentioned it earlier, they've gone for the 0-3-2 split push strategy, sending both their teleport solo lanes into bottom lane, picking off Ray. This is something we don't see from too many teams in the world.
It means that they just have better wave management than majority of the LPL teams. They're constantly clearing out their waves, creating slow push. You see Scout on your screen picking up the wave again, even though he just reset this. And these are the opportunities that RNG want to create. They want to force Edward Gaming to go out to a side lane, to clear something out, and then find a pick.
And the only other team in the world that does this successfully is arguably the best team in the world in Kingzone. It says a lot about how hard the strategy itself is to execute. And that does speak highly of RNG, who consistently make it work when they have something like the Galio and the Camille. But this is the budget version, and it was still successful.
And it ultimately means that if RNG ever get Baron, their ability to close out is within 3 to 4 minutes. They are one of the most devastating LPL Baron teams in terms of just ending the game off of a single buff.
They're the 2-team fight team. A Baron buff gives them a fight and then another fight to close out the game. And we saw just then in the 0-3-2 strategy, Banner of Command being used by Xiaohu to push out that wave. Scout was forced to deal with it. An AP champion can't take down those cannon minions quite effectively. His final minion dematerializer was used to clear that one out. So in a few minutes, they can reset that strategy again. RNG have officially stopped the bleeding. They are only 2,000 gold behind EDG now.
They're definitely set to fight from now on. They're looking towards the Baron as a point where their vision is going to go to start with, and then it's trying to generate picks with the vision that they have. Again, the Zac very good at it. Morgana very good with the bindings. Rakan has that natural follow-up as well, unless it's a team fight, in which case he can raw engage.
And Edward Gaming cannot sleep on their vision control around the Baron pit because it is a Kog'Maw that they're looking across from. Zac Kog'Maw can very easily 2-man this Baron, so you have to be conscientious of it at all times, which forces Edward Gaming to miss out on a lot of side wave control and free farm as they have to just kind of plant their feet here and create a base.
Well, they're looking for a fight here. They jump in on top of iBoy, locking him down, force the flash away early. Good snare coming out on top of Uzi, but he's taking absolutely no damage. Scout is trying to move into the back lines. Xiaohu separates the team, but it costs him his life. Looking to pull back Casa. Uzi's trying to kite this one out, but he's not dealing enough damage. His W is still on cooldown. Scout still pushing forward, pulls back the puppy. Another pick for EDG. They find a team fight.
They finish the fight with full health because of a Janna and a Fiora as well. They keep pushing forwards. EDG take the turret, go straight to the Baron right now, threaten and kill the rest of RNG if they come. Very clean fight.
This is a double Ocean, now possibly Baroned up Edward Gaming with Caitlyn Morgana. This may actually be the nail in the coffin for RNG's comp this early in game 1.
Perfect time for EDG to fight as well. iBoy picked up 3 items before they went into that skirmish in the mid lane. Xiaohu on this Morgana, yes, separated the team from the side of EDG as they chase through the RNG roster. But this is not a Galio, it's a Morgana, and he fell so quickly.
And Scout is definitely showing up in the finals for all of the wishy-washy double-edged sword of regular split Scout. When it comes to the grand finals, this guy always performs.
He's the MVP of the playoffs last year as well, and we get to watch this fight one more time. iBoy's caught, remember that. Mako saves him, has the Janna ultimate there, and watch Scout, the Zonya's timing as well, acknowledging that both Xiaohu and Scout are using it, but the Swain's getting health back, he's super tanky, and EDG kills Xiaohu in that time.
Perfect time as well. Uzi can see no Bi-Arcane Barrage available as he kites back throughout the entire fight. A lot of his early game damage is there, and Scout, pixel perfect,
and
the pullback.
The thing about RNG's composition right now is they don't have a lot of disengage ability. I feel like they're great at diving into backlines and going forward, but if they're ever in a situation where EDG are advancing on them, are looking to penetrate their backline, there's nothing to protect Uzi.
And all the hard work that EDG set up to try and come back to this match has now been undone. It's a 6,000 gold lead again for EDG. They're still pushing through, and they're looking strong when they set up for these fights, which they have been finding ever since the first fight in the bottom lane, very early into the match.
For all subsequent fights that we hang on, Fiora's going.
Taking a lot of damage. Ray uses his ultimate. Haro is looking to try and see if he can protect Ray in the bottom lane. Karsa wanted to try and see if he can jump in, but this is going to be another inner turret falling. RNG have been forced back inside of their base.
This is one bad fight from RNG away from being over. They cannot afford to make a mistake at this point in the game due to the nature of Edward Gaming's composition and its ability to crush structures. This is on a knife's edge for them in game one if they want to find momentum for the rest of this series.
But they need to do it all at once. Yes. Uzi's Bi-Arcane Barrage is super important. EDG have the ability to reset at will. And so that's what EDG do here. If RNG engage on them, just reset, go again.
He was on top of control wall, but they got vision through the champions pushing forward to the turret. The cancel of the jump coming out against Karsa allows EDG to break the base. Redemption is going to heal them all back up to full. Ming takes a shot from Caitlyn. He's down to half health. EDG are going to try and push for the first inhibitor as the inhibitor turret has already fallen.
The second Uzi does not have his W available, they go forwards. The second that Xiaohu does not have the black shield available, they go forwards. That is the go button for EDG. They play patiently, they use the Baron, they maximize what they get from
Just
that.
a great read on cooldowns across the board from Edward Gaming, but the Baron buff will surely be ticking down. They've only got about a quarter of it left, so I think that may be the most bleeding away from RNG. They grabbed a second wave. This could get worse.
Still, they pick up a lot of gold after that play. Close to 9,000 gold ahead. They're still pushing with the 55 seconds they have remaining on it, trying to tag Uzi, trying to lock him down. Black Shield already used by Xiaohu.
But this is usually where Edward Gaming tend to overreach, tend to push things. They've been punished so many times that they make a secondary siege on a mid tower.
One more wave, last chance in the ring.
They jump in, Uzi's forced to flash away. Mingo's already initiated and cancelled. Karsa gets knocked up. Scout into the backlines, locking down the puppy. He pops, and Kog'Maw is dead. EDG have broken the base. Xiaohu's forced to retreat.
This may actually just be the rest of the game here, Fisher. With a couple of kills, they're still pushing.
They're trying to push. The Tai as well as Xiaohu have to try and put up a massive defense. EDG are so far ahead. Baron buff is going to expire, but the death timers are just way too long here. Forcing the flash out of Morgana, forcing to Tai back to the fountain. iBoy stepping forward with Scouter as well. They want more, they want blood, and they can smell it in the waters in game one. EDG take it.
The machine of Edward Gaming takes game number one. Morale momentum is going to be so important just because of how long-standing this rivalry is. Uzi says it all the time. Clearlove says it all the time. I can get in your head. I know what you're thinking. I don't even need the reverse sweep this time.
We know that EDG are good at planning. We knew they had a strategy up their sleeve, and they didn't even need Clearlove to do it in this first game. They've got Haro, they've got iBoy showing up to play, they've got Scout here as well in very good form for this first game. And they do get themselves a super clean victory in the end, but we saw things from RNG that can come back in the second game and can still get them over the line.
EDG played their stock standard play style for game number one. Bringing in Haro. Haro said it himself before the match against RNG that, you know what, Clearlove, you don't need to step in. I've got it covered. Did well in the early game to track down Karsa. RNG were the team that, again, game one of a playoff series, they throw a spanner in the works. They put Morgana in the mid lane, and it looked like they were going to come back after the early game deficit, but it did not work out.
But I'm looking at everything that I don't want to see. The only camera that I want is on Uzi's face. That was a composition built around him on his famous Kog'Maw pick, and he fell short. Can Uzi, as the veteran, finally step up and recover from this?
I will say going 0-1 down is not as bad as going down a map when you're 2-0 up for Uzi as well. The mentality may still be there for him. He's got plenty of time to bounce back, and he did have a very good first game. I still personally look towards the Zac as the thing that needs to change. If they want to have any early pressure, either get rid of the Trundle to pick the Zac and know that there's now a Janna in the playbook for EDG. I think you just remove the Zac by default now.
Ultimately, I would also like much more of a playmaking champion for for the mid lane. If we're going to start changing up the jungle mid duo, get rid of the Morgana.
Because we didn't see too much from RNG. It's all EDG setting up. The times that they were able to counter out that strategy pulled back something for RNG, but every single time, back to the drawing board for EDG. Back to what they do best, and they're able to close it out with constant team fights.
You have to remember the Azir ban was actually the genius part of it. Removed a very big strength from RNG that ruined the composition almost.
And it's something that we don't usually see played coming out from RNG. That's an EDG pick. They ban it away, and it works well for their team composition. For now, to break down that first match, let's send it back to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much. Game 1 going to Edward Gaming. And guys, I'm so proud of you. That when we got into the analyst desk, we talked about the strategy. You know, what are EDG going to do? They're going to take priority mid lane. They're going to roam bottom. They're going to do all of these cool things. And then that's exactly what happened. It's almost like we set it up in advance as if that's how it would break down.
Yeah, there's not much to say about that just because it comes down to draft. You see the smug, like the sad face that he has right now just because.
Smug, sad? That was...
I'm smug.
I'm just sad. I'm just sad.
Just because the draft is why this happened.
Yeah.
I know the casters touched on it just a little bit, poking at these Zac and specifically the Morgana. I think those are fine because Spellbook Morgana has the double teleport. It allows you to protect the bottom lane. But it needed a lot of protection because you're going Rakan Kog'Maw versus a Caitlyn and a Janna. That is legitimately just such a bad matchup. You saw them getting skirmished time and time again. I would have gone for a different support, a Tahm Kench, maybe even a Lulu if they wanted to take priority there.
Yeah, the Morgana pick, we can talk a little bit about it. It actually does have priority in this lane, but the reason you never saw it actually move out first was because they were too far behind the jungle. Like, what's the Morgana going to do in a 2v1 scenario? Overall, this is the worst type of draft I want to see from RNG because they give EDG priority in bot, jungle, mid. They even get a counter pick in the top lane as well. Super late game, Camille does not win against Fiora. Fiora has too much late game scaling. And EDG get the siege comp that they're so comfortable in running. RNG, their only win condition is to outplay a siege break. They're going to have to come from the blind sides of vision, come in and then clean up a team fight in very large margins, like a 5-0 team fight. That's the only way they actually win, and that's such a narrow path that it's just, please just take the Caitlyn first pick and be done with it.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to disassemble. We already saw that Janna pick is incredibly good versus the Zac.
Yeah.
In fact, later portions of the game, it's very hard to utilize Morgana to shield Zac going in when he's coming at a different flank. So Morgana's supposed to be up front, protecting the Kog'Maw, wave clearing possibly to stop the siege. She's not going to be throwing out a magic shield for the Zac to come in through, so there was no engage coming there.
Yeah, so let's actually get into the first replay that we've got for you, which was exactly what we talked about before the game. EDG, they want to take priority mid lane, then use that to push behind the red buff, roam the Trundle down, and gank bottom lane. And what do you know? That's exactly what we saw with that first kill onto Uzi.
Yeah, it started with Haro. The fact that he was able to get good vision on towards Raptors, getting an idea that either the Zac was going to be top side of the map, or he was just back at base. He was running from base, so he knew that there was no way that bottom lane fight or skirmish or gank wasn't going to work.
Yeah, Haro played that really intelligently because he played around his side lanes rather than his mid. Morgana should have the push priority in the mid, but the side lanes were all for EDG. So he's able to slip in through that try, through the upper brush with the Fiora pushing in early as well, and just track Karsa. Karsa was the tracker, but he was the one tracked this game. They pinned Karsa to one side, rotate to the other. They know there's no jungler, free to go all in.
Yeah, easy gank to the bottom lane, and then immediately EDG, once they had that first kill, they had tempo in that bottom lane. They could push up to the turret, break it down first with the siege, and rotate top. This is where we see them sieging that top tier 1, and RNG's composition comes to fruition in this early skirmish.
Yeah, this is a little bit interesting just because EDG were actually in a pretty decent spot. They had pushed back Zatai. There was no way Uzi was going to walk up. It was actually iBoy flashing in that made it all the easier for RNG to get the necessary picks, because ultimately, if EDG had played it as well as they did there, and if it was Caitlyn pacing backwards, they actually would have gotten a plus.
Yeah, I agree. That fight was actually thrown by EDG. I feel like RNG should not have such an easy time going in there, and you could just see the setup that Janna and Mako were providing in the backline. He was always trying to go behind the carries and push whatever engage options were coming at them. That Janna was a terrific pick for Mako.
And we did see those two compositions come to fruition at multiple points in this game. Edward Gaming able to set the tempo by taking those early turrets, rotating and trying to siege turrets rather effectively, and RNG, as we heard the caster saying, with the siege break composition. They want to take the fight. They want the Zac to come in from a flank and try to force that. Our last replay for you is going to be that fight in the mid lane, in which we see RNG ready to try and take the fight,
but they didn't take your X factor into account, Raz. Scout coming in on that Swain, finding Uzi.
And he preyed on the fact that they could not get iBoy. iBoy had both sums up. He used them both to get the safety, and he just runs straight in there. Knew that he was going to be the major point of contention, that they were going to focus fire onto him. He immediately flashes out, and this is just when EDG starts to flank.
Yeah, there's two really smart things about that. The first one is that they didn't actually spot the Swain out. There was a control ward in that bush. They could not see him, so they went all in thinking they would have a potential catch. The other thing is about how easy EDG's composition is to execute. All they need is one kill on someone, and they suddenly all get this massive healing. They have the healing from Fiora, so against a composition that just tries to catch someone, they're not about sustained fighting at all. That's such a good counter. Trundle into Swain to win the complete sustain war was magnificent.
Well, that's game number one going to Edward Gaming, guys. A great performance from them. The question is, though, can RNG bring it back? We heard so much about the Mad Dog and his mental state coming into this. He's got a few minutes to recover, and so do you. We're going to go and take a quick break while we get ready for game two.
我这个人的特点就是从来不会怯场，就像平常的一局游戏一样打倒你们。
每一次的失利都会让我更加渴望冠军，打败我吧，我只会变得更强。